First reading of Senate files.
First reading, Senate File Number 31, an act relating to state government. Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, Winkler moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that Senate File Number 31 be given its second and third readings and be placed upon its final passage.
Representative Winkler, to your motion.
Madam Speaker, members, this is the bill for unemployment insurance extension and relief for Minnesota small businesses. I ask for a yes vote.
Discussion to the Winkler motion. Representative New.
Members, I would recommend a yes vote.
Seeing no discussion, a roll call is mandatory. The clerk will take the roll on the Winkler motion.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson. Anderson. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Bahr.
Bahr, no.
Bahr, no. Baker. Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker, Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman. Bierman. Bow.
Bow, aye.
Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand votes yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin. Claflin. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt. Davids.
Aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Daphne, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean. Dean. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, no. Eklund. Eklund. Edelson.
Edelson, yes.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg, aye.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, no.
Grossel, no. Grunhagen.
Greenhagen, aye.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley. Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman.
Heisman, aye.
Heinzman.
Heisman, aye.
Heinsman, aye. Her,
Aye.
aye. Hertas. Hertas. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, I.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, I.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Wattoon.
Katiza Wattoon, I.
Katiza Wattoon, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, I.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Lee, aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh. Excused. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly. Lily. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Long. Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann. Excused. Mariani. Mariani. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin. Mecklin. Miller. Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Morrison, I.
Morrison, aye. Munson.
Bunsen, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, I.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson, M.
Nelson, M, aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson, N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. New. New, aye. Noor.
Nor, aye.
Noor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll, aye.
O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, I.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, I.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, I.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Samstead, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Sauk, aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin. Sundin. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tedke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice. Tice. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Bang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Waconia, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
J, I.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti. Zhang Ti.
Zhang Ti, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Doubt. Doubt. Dean.
Dean, aye.
Dean, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Hertos.
Kurtas, aye.
Hertos, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, I.
Mariani, aye. Mecklin.
Mecklin, no.
Mecklin, no. Runbeck. Runbeck.
I can freaking.
Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. Sundin. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Tice. Tice, aye. You got Runbeck? Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Doubt.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Doubt.
Vote, Kurt. Can we get it? One more time.
Doubt.
Doubt votes aye.
Doubt, aye.
this call and said she was in Rochester and said yes. Clerk will close the roll. The motion prevails. The clerk will give Senate File 31 its second reading.
Second reading, Senate File number 31.
Second reading. Discussion to the bill. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend Senate File number 31 as follows. The amendment is coded RA 20-015.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members, the bill as presented gets rid of or forgives the food license expenses for next year. And it does touch a little bit in one area of alcohol licenses for retail establishments as well. This would exempt or forgive similarly the alcohol license expenses for all bars and other places that serve alcohol as well. So it's a glaring omission from the bill, and I think it makes the bill better, and certainly our bars and restaurants, if the purpose of this bill is to help them, we need to take the pressure of government off of them because that is what's killing them currently. So, Madam Speaker and members, I encourage adoption of the amendment to exempt or to, I think the correct word is to forgive the license fee for alcohol establishments over the next calendar year.
Discussion to the amendment. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, this is as good a time as any to make clear that any amendment that we adopt to this bill at this time will have the effect of killing the bill. The Senate has passed it. They have adjourned sine die. There is no mechanism for the House to amend the bill in any useful or effective fashion. If we amend it and pass it, the bill dies. I would ask for a no vote.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, members, this is a glaring omission from the bill. And I don't know about the management of the House and the management of the Senate and what lack of articulation there is in this bill that, members, I think we just received within the last few hours here. I am still reading it and understanding it. We need to do the right job here for the people of Minnesota, and this bill is falling drastically short. I'd encourage your support of the amendment. Madam Speaker, I'd ask for a roll call.
Representative Drazkowski requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? I do not see 15 hands. Representative New.
Madam Speaker, point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Will you please clarify which amendment we are on?
Representative New, I have in front of me the RA 20-015, which does not appear to relate to the topic Representative Drazkowski has raised. Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Drazkowski.
Madam Speaker, Actually, this is Representative Bahr's amendment. I submitted it on his behalf. He's not here, and it was more convenient for me. I assumed this was my amendment, so I spoke to the wrong amendment, Madam Speaker. I'm wondering if Representative Bahr could introduce his amendment.
Representative Bahr, to your amendment. I'm not sure if we have Representative Bahr, Representative Driscoski.
In lieu of Representative Bahr, Madam Speaker, if it meets your approval here, I could introduce Representative Bahr's amendment. This amendment, members, is an amendment that really does what we need to do to truly help the businesses of the state of Minnesota. Now, this bill, as much as it tries to take money from the taxpayer wallet here in St. Paul and reimburse the damages that government, specifically Governor Walz, has done to the businesses and the hardworking entrepreneurs and workers throughout the state of Minnesota. And there is not enough money, Madam Speaker, in state government to adequately and properly reimburse the damages that this governor has done to the state of Minnesota. There's just not enough money here. We could spend the entire projected surplus for this biennium, 600 and some million, or whatever that number is, but it's not enough. The right answer, members, is to remove the boot of Governor Walz from the necks of our restaurants and bars throughout the state, our dance studios, and all of our gyms, and all of our other businesses that are struggling to get air and survive his crushing blows. So, Madam Speaker, what this does, it's a delete all amendment. It will delete the entire bill and replace it with a reopening of the government, saying that when Governor Walz's current peacetime emergency expires, it will be done. That's the amendment, Madam Speaker. Members, encourage your adoption.
Discussion to the amendment. Representative Bahr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry for the delay. What the amendment, the amendment doesn't actually end the governor's peacetime emergency. It does rework 1231 so that both bodies of the legislature have to positively reaffirm the governor's extension of any peacetime emergency. We should not be subject to one person's decisions on how the entire state needs to be run. That's what the legislative process is. And as Representative Driscoski mentioned earlier, what we have is government taking money out of the right pocket of business owners and individuals, skimming a little off the top for administrative purposes, and sticking it back in the right pocket, and hoping that we can limp along our business owners to someday in the future, whenever the governor decides he doesn't need to rule anymore, and we actually can have a co-equal branches of government, a representative body, a people's representative in the decision-making process. I don't think there just isn't enough money. We can't steal enough out of the right pocket, put it in the left, or vice versa, and keep taking pieces out of this and limping it along. We're not like Washington. We don't get to keep printing more money to limp us along and paste over all of our shortfalls in tax receipts. MMB has told us repeatedly we're going to be short on tax receipts next year. We're going to have to be cutting. And the best way to solve all of those problems is to open up Minnesota, let business owners put people back to work so we not only have business tax revenue, but individual tax revenue. People will be earning a living again. They'll be able to pay not only their bills, but those that rent will be able to pay their rent. So landlords can be made whole again. Everything that we are trying to address in this bill can be addressed much easier, much quicker, much more efficiently if we open Minnesota for business. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion. The member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Yes, Madam Speaker, would Representative Drazkowski yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Drazkowski, in your introduction of Representative Bahr's amendment, you did mention that it would, I think if I recall, open up Minnesota, and it would force the governor to open up Minnesota, something like that. My question is for you, though, is that the governor did say that on December 18th, businesses would open again. They had to pause for 30 days. Bars, restaurants, gyms, dance studios, etc., would be opened up on the 18th. So if the governor, of course, is good with his word, and businesses will be able to be opened up on the 18th, like he said it would be, would your amendment still be needed?
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative McDonald. And I will read for Representative McDonald and others here the operative language in the bill. The additional language says, a peacetime emergency declared under this subdivision expires 30 days after the governor's declaration unless extended by the legislature as provided in paragraph B. So, Representative McDonald, what this would do is provide that after the 30 days expires, so I believe that is today, the governor's peacetime emergency would be over unless the legislature extends it again. So that's what the language says. And Representative McDonald, indeed, the governor has led the people of Minnesota along now for 277 days under the guise and color of an emergency. There is no longer an emergency. We understand this disease. The vaccine is flying out from Washington, D.C. President Trump sent the airplanes yesterday. There's one that landed here in Minnesota already. It's time to take the governor's boot off the throat of Minnesota businesses and Minnesota citizens. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative McDonald.
Madam Speaker, well, Representative Drazkowski, if your amendment does that, indeed end the emergency powers of the governor and give the ability to our businesses, our friends, our families in our communities who are suffering so much. And yes, we certainly recognize and understand that there have been lost ones that have passed away and left this earth, hopefully, and most likely go into heaven to be with their loved ones. But there also is many, many folks suffering here intently in our communities, our schools, our civic groups, our Lions clubs, our churches, our businesses. This pandemic has hurt us to the core, and the response that our governor did and has responded accordingly to our state has, I think, even done even more reprehensible damage. Suicides are up, depression, drug abuse, mental abuse. We simply cannot afford to keep going in this direction. So if that's indeed what your amendment does, Representative Drazkowski, I would support it.
Discussion.
Madam Speaker.
Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the members and to this amendment will kill, as Representative Winkler has said, will kill the opportunity for us to help 4,000 bars and restaurants and gyms, wineries, brew pubs, any number of places. Will kill off, I wouldn't say that, I will say it will harm convention centers in Rochester, Mankato, Bemidji, Duluth, the Twin Cities, and it will take money from each and every county in the state to help the small businesses that they know best. And not only that, but on December 26th, 125,000 workers in the state of Minnesota who are now on unemployment will lose that benefit in the middle of winter. The middle of winter, if this amendment goes on, those 125,000 working people in Minnesota will be without any cash in their pocket. And though we as politicians have been called cold-hearted and many other words, none of us want to kill this kind of package that will not only help businesses, but will help keep money in the pockets of workers who will have none the day after Christmas. Members, I hope and highly recommend a no vote to this amendment.
Discussion to the amendment. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no.
No.
The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend Senate File Number 31. The first engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A20-0849.
Representative Drazkowski, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually introduced this amendment improperly earlier, not getting the numbers correct, but I do have it in front of me. And this is indeed the amendment that would add to the bill language that would equally forgive the alcohol tax that's placed on our alcohol serving establishments throughout Minnesota, relieve them of that tax, just like our food service hospitality businesses throughout the state are going to be relieved of their food tax. This would do equally the same to those businesses. It's a glaring omission from the bill, and if we're truly going to take the pressure off these businesses, we really need to do this, and I encourage your support and ask for a roll call, Madam Speaker.
Representative Drazkowski requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? There are not 15 hands. Discussion to the amendment. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, Representative Drazkowski, as we said before, amending this bill kills it. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Drazkowski.
Madam Speaker, I don't think there's 15 members in the chamber. I think we need to phone a friend and poll the entire 134 members of the House and work to get a roll call vote on this amendment.
Members, if you would like to raise your hand for a vote on the Drazkowski amendment, please send an email from your official House email account to hands@house.mn with the word hands in the subject line. We'll wait 60 seconds to determine whether we have the votes. Nice try getting counted twice. There are not 15 hands. Discussion to the amendment. Seeing no further discussion to the amendment, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please
Aye.
say no.
No.
The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. Clerk will report the amendment.
Nash moves to amend Senate File Number 31. The first engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded 7SS-S0031A2.
Member from Carver, Representative Nash, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm just going to call this the A2 amendment since that's the last part of it. You know, in the conversation that we've had thus far and in the negotiations to get this bill to where it is, there has been a long and consistent request from a number of people around the state. These are hardworking businesses. These are hardworking business owners. These are people who many of us frequent as we go about our social lives under normal circumstances. And these are people who we often say that we support. But lately, I feel that we've been offering that same support in a very thin and quavering voice. And those are people who make craft beverages or sell beverages. So brewers, distillers, restaurants and cocktail rooms. And Madam Speaker, the A2 would allow for a temporary easing of restrictions to allow brewers, for one example, to sell the beer that they have in their tanks and in kegs. Because right now, several brewers around the state are wondering what's next, which way is up, and who's here to offer them some help. Now, many of them may get some help from this bill that is being debated right now. But I've been driving around the state and been on Zoom calls, and I've met with people. You might have seen it on the news. We were at Fulton Brewing the other day, bipartisan effort to talk about the fact that we need to allow them some easing of the restrictions in order to sell what they've got. A large group of those brewers has been sending me numbers of what they may have to dump down the drain. And members, it's north of $9 million worth of beer, just beer alone, may get dumped by brewers from around the state. Now, as it relates to the micro distillers, you know, we passed a cocktail room bill a number of years ago, but now we can't allow them to be open. That's where a good number of micro distilleries make some of their money. And what this would allow them to do would be to sell bottles 1.5 liters volumetrically out the door, whether it's in full-size bottles, small bottles, temporarily until up to 45 days after the emergency is lifted. And it would allow them to do so and just to cash flow. You know, we talked long about what could we do for limited off sale for restaurants and bars closed by the executive order. We would allow them to virtually double what they're currently able to do just to begin giving them the ability to cash flow and make some money. Many of these folks are still paying their staff, even though they may not have the register receipts to make that even just a pass through. They're dipping into their own savings to keep these people employed and moving along. So members, this is an opportunity that I feel that needs to be addressed. I appreciate what happened over in the other body. There was a full-throated discussion. There was a vote on it, and I think that that was a great thing. Because so many of you, and because I have spoken with you, I know so many of you want to do the right thing. But here is where the confluence of union overlords and corporate overlords and organizational overlords overshadow the ability to do the right thing. That people say, nope, can't do that. That would end everything as we know it, and it would be awful. Members, these folks told me in a couple of different Zoom calls that they'll take a check whenever it gets there in whatever paltry amount it may arrive in. But what they really want to do is to sell the stuff that they make. Because that's how they grew their businesses. That's how they will continue to support their businesses. They're not necessarily looking for a handout. That's the last thing that they want. They recognize that Governor Walz made this decision and it is now impeding their business plan very much. But what they're asking us to do is to do the right thing, allow them to have a temporary change to law to just sell their stuff. So members, I encourage you to reflect upon what you know to be the right thing and then to do it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no.
Aye.
No.
No.
The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 31.
Third reading, discussion to the bill. The author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. It's kind of an odd deal because we typically try to read about the bill before we start getting too deep into discussions. But I will explain the bill now. We have a bill with four components that I, Representative Mahmoud Noor, and myself work exceedingly hard on. This is the final bill of my career as a legislator. I'm incredibly proud of the work that has been done on this bill. And I really need to thank the members of the House of Representatives who have worked collaboratively to get this bill to where it is. Representative Noor, Representative Stevenson, Representative Olson, Representative Baker, Representative Haley, Representative Garofalo, and Representative New. We've worked together, and we've had our differences, and we've worked them out. It's called a compromise. It's what we're supposed to do, what our folks send us here to do. The relief we have provided to the businesses and workers and added to the hundreds of millions of dollars that were provided to the counties, to all counties across the state from the CARES Act money last April, May, or a lifetime ago, it seems. The $62 million we added in June. We are adding $216 million and $800,000 to this particular, with this bill. And it's not just a bill for businesses. We have added in a 13-week extension for people, as I said earlier on one of the amendments, that are running out of unemployment at Christmas, the day after Christmas. 125,000 people that live in this state, that have worked in this state, have made homes in this state, will run out of unemployment. 13 weeks doesn't get them till the sun is shining in June, which is where we originally started. But it does give them certainty till winter's over. It does give them a sense of hope. This bill truly proves that we are one Minnesota. We are helping greater Minnesota, we are helping urban Minnesota, and when I say urban, I mean everything from Duluth and St. Cloud to Rochester and Worthington. I will explain all four parts of the bill. And there's a part that Representative Olson has worked on, and there's a part that Representative Dabney has worked on, and I will call on them to explain their parts of the bill. This is called the Business Relief Package. I think in the bill you can find first page or second, the businesses that are outlined in the bars, restaurants, gyms, breweries, family wineries, distilleries, bowling centers, a variety of businesses. They have to have experienced a 30% decline in overall sales year to year, from last year to this year. And we are using the second and third quarters as our guide. They must have done at least $10,000 in sales in 2019. They must be affected by the Executive Order 2099, must have a physical presence in the state, must be in good standing with the Department of Revenue, and they must have experienced a 30% loss. There are 5 tiers. They're listed in the bill, but I will quickly go over them. Businesses not in the UI system, those would be a family-run business, a mom and a dad and their 2 kids. They would receive $10,000, 0 to 20 employees, a $15,000 check. 21 to 100 is $25,000. 100 to 300 employees would be $35,000, and over 300 would be $45,000. Now, I want to make it clear, because you will get calls. What if a business person or group owns 5 or 6 or 10 restaurants, franchises or not, or individual restaurants? They would get 1 check, depending on the number of employees. There's an administrative cost from the Department of Revenue. It's about $250,000 on an $88 million package. The first bucket comes to a total of very approximate, because we don't know. Some people will take it and some people won't. $88 million. There's a convention center and movie theaters. Both those particular type of businesses are anchors in communities. There are a number of businesses, and I want to thank John Purcell for bringing forth his committee, his convention center from Bemidji, because we didn't recognize that one. The convention centers have a budget of $5 million. I want to make sure I'm going to get this right. With a capacity, you have to have a capacity over 1,500. The maximum grant is $500,000. It must be used specifically to cover direct operations or upkeep of the facilities. Any unused funds in this bucket have to be sent back to the general fund, as with the previous bucket. And deed has an administrative fee of $100,000. Now, I want to be very clear. I said a maximum of $500,000. Does not mean that each and every convention center will get $500,000. We only put $5 million in there. And once you put money out there, I'm sure there'll be a convention center like John's that we did not, Representative Purcell's, that we did not know about. Then there's the movie theaters. And Representative Baker and I worked on this a bit. Movie theaters across the state are anchors, either for shopping centers or for downtowns. And in recognition, there's 146 theaters with 822 screens. We put $9 million into this particular assistance. And I want you to listen relatively closely, because this gets a little complicated. It was brought up that some of these small towns have 2 screens in their 1 theater versus the megaplex at, shopping center ABC or whatever. So what we devised is the first 2 screens get $15,000. And every screen after that gets a $10,000 grant. And this is a grant program run through DEED, up to a maximum of $150,000. Understand, many of these theaters have been closed all but 3 months of the year. So they are significantly at risk of closure. I'm going to call this the local economically significant businesses. This is a county program, and this has $114.8 million in it. And for everyone to hear this, because you will get calls, how come I didn't get any money from the county? The responsibility for making those choices are with the county, because they are the closest to their businesses in their area, and they have the ability to administrate this. There's a number of requirements. It's in the bill. They must have a physical presence in the county. They must be in good standing. But the counties can contract with the nonprofit lenders like they have in the past. They have to have that physical presence. We did not put a ton of requirements on here. There's some language in here that allows for tribal lands. There's some language in here that makes the counties aware that nonprofits are eligible. And it also says in the bill that if they receive the Department of Revenue check in that first bucket, they are still eligible. The counties can take no more than 2.5 of the state funds for administration. They must distribute the money by March 31st at the latest and return any unspent funds by April 15th. Now for the one that was relatively contentious, how it gets distributed. It will be distributed on a per capita basis of $19.25 per resident of that county, or a one-time payment of $250,000. And the reason we did that is that there is a significant amount of counties, I think it's 22, that would not reach 250,000 using that per capita. And we thought that a county should have enough money to make a difference on 1, 2, 5, however many businesses they think they can do with that kind of money. So you either get $250,000 to the county to be administered by the county for businesses in their county, or you can take the per diem, which is $19.25. Again, that is the business package that was pretty much done this afternoon. Negotiations sometimes come down to the wire. Was the 13-week extension for unemployment benefits to those that I mentioned earlier that fall off of all of the federal CARES Act extensions and all the other stuff on December 26th. And what we did, because 15,000 fall off between the week of the 19th and the 26th, we added those in. We just didn't think it was fair. I guess maybe we all wanted to sleep better at night by not taking somebody's unemployment away over Christmas. So they do not get a payment on unemployment until after the 27th of December. And the state package ends, again, this is not that usual in a UI situation, but it was an insistence by the Senate that we have an end date on it. And the end date is April 3rd, so that there is no more benefits that come out of the state coffers on April 3rd. Now, if And in the bill itself is a provision that if the federal government can find it a way to a compromise in Washington, D.C. on an economic recovery package for the country. And in the past they have included an unemployment extension. And if they do so again, that supersedes the state benefits. So that maybe the state would be on the hook for 1 week or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but it very likely will not be on the hook for all 13 weeks. This is a gap filler. This is a bridge. There's other things in the bill, not that hard to understand. I will stand for questions, Madam Speaker.
The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I was privileged to be on this committee to work on this business relief bill. But as proud as I am of this bill and all the work that went into this, all the slices and dices that we did to try to right-size this bill to the right size of the business, this was painfully long, and as Representative Mahoney has pointed out really well, this was a lot of work in a short amount of time to be able to come up with a way to, as best we could, distribute $216 million to businesses that, Lord knows, they really need it bad. My biggest hope is that this is coming not too late. My hope is that it gets to them soon enough so that there is some relief for the pain that they have endured like we have never imagined. I just want to give a tiny, Representative Mahoney did a great job explaining the nuts and bolts of the bill. 3 buckets. There's also some unemployment insurance, which is super important for our workers. But we started working on this. I guess I started working on this project even before the governor announced the closure the last time on EO 20-99 because of my personal experience as a small business owner and how I experienced getting my CARES money from my local economic development office. And I shared that with Representative Mahoney on our first day that we had a conversation about this, which was actually the day before Thanksgiving. And since then, Representative Mahoney and I have talked every single day, twice a day, on the phone and on Zooms. And so we've gotten to really work together a lot. We've had to both sit and listen to a lot of patience and a lot of understanding of what this meant to businesses. And with as proud as I am of this bill, members, this bill could have been better because we didn't get to run it through the regular process. We didn't get to run it through the committee process that I have always valued because it makes these bills better. As Representative Mahoney said, we were tweaking the bill this afternoon. The ink is barely dry on this, but that is truly the urgency of this need of this bill tonight. So my message tonight is I hope that we can really show our businesses a strong green board today to say that we're sorry and we should have done this sooner. We should have been ready for this when the announcement was made. We're closing you down for the second time. And I think by acting quickly as we could in the manner that we did, we have something that we can be proud of. That county bucket, that last part of it is our safety net. That's the one that's going to have local eyes on the ground. They're the ones who are going to be our ambassadors with this large allotment of money that's going to go to our local companies, our businesses, our motor coach businesses, bowling alleys, hotels, lodging, but they are going to be the ones who are going to actually make sure it gets to the right places. This isn't intended to go to campgrounds or resorts that are typically closed for the winter, not golf courses that are typically closed for the winter. But they should go to golf courses if they have and own a restaurant. They should go to places that are open year-round that can't be right now because their event centers are closed. Our local partners in our counties will help us with that. And my plead to our county partners, please move as quickly as you can. The Department of Revenue has given us an indication that they should be able to get monies out by the end of this month. They have the information almost in hand for the businesses that have met the certain thresholds of 30% reduction in sales and the amount of employees that they have. Those should get out relatively quick without even having a business apply for those. Our local counties have a little bit more work to do, but we do hope our county folks can deploy this money as fast as they can, especially to the folks right now like our restaurants and bars, our bowling alleys that are closed up. They cannot let anybody inside their business, and I'm certainly missing the gyms and fitness centers as well. We need to make sure they get immediate relief as best we can. But this didn't have to happen this way. And my concern that my constant conversations with members of this body throughout the whole summer, we have tried to reach over to the governor's office in many different ways. We have kicked down doors. We are trying to get the attention of our governor, and there is a firewall that's challenging to get through because we're trying to get the attention of the actual governor and his staff. As hardworking as they are, it's still not the same as the person making those decisions that get to open or close. We've been working really hard to try to get through to Governor Walz. I wish we would have been called in 2 months ago, 3 months ago to say, if there is another shutdown, we should be ready for something. We didn't get that opportunity. We waited until after he announced the shutdown, and then we got a call a couple days later say, we better get a plan together. I'm glad our plan had been in the works for a few days, but businesses deserve better. Our small businesses, again, through this last few weeks, I have seen and heard the tears. I have seen the crying, and they don't know what to do. They literally just want to put the plywood on the windows and call it good. They're so exhausted. It's kind of like getting hit with a flood 2 years in a row. You just get done from the last one. You feel like you're getting your life back in order. Your summer, you worked your tails off in that third quarter to kind of get you feeling like you can get through the fall, the winter, spring, and then, man, we're back to summer and everything's going well. And they got shut down once again. I think that we could just have done this better. But this is a good bill. And again, to those businesses, again, I'm sorry it took us this long to get it out. We should have done this before. We should have been ready. But your legislative branch has been trying very hard to get the attention of the governor, to try to work with him, alongside of him, to make sure we take some of that pressure off. And it hasn't happened until now. And we can do better. So as we go into our 2021 session, I'm committing our work, and we have to work in a bipartisan fashion. We have to work in a bicameral session and also with all the branches of government. We should never let this ever happen again. And we can do better with that. So members, please, let's get this help to our businesses as fast as possible. Let's work and communicate with our county partners to tell them how urgent this is to get the money out as soon as possible. And again, to the businesses and the owners and the employees that just don't know what to do, which way to turn, we are on the way. We've got relief coming. It's not enough. It's only to give you a life support till the next round comes, and hopefully our federal partners will be there for us. But businesses, we're finally on our way. And it's far too long, but members, thank you for allowing me to serve on this important committee, and Representative Mahoney and Representative Knorr, Representative New, Haley, Garofalo, Nash, everybody and anybody who was somebody who was working on these components all did a great job working on this bill in a very, very fast manner. So again, especially also to Travis Reese and Chelsea Olson, they were fabulous staff members on this. Thank you all for that, and please vote green. Thank you.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will just briefly touch on the section of the bill that relates to the fee waivers for some pieces of the hospitality industry. And as mentioned, there's a lot going on in this bill, and the intention of this was to work in tandem with the larger relief that was discussed by Representative Mahoney. But we also wanted to do something additionally to help with the fee burden that a lot of our businesses are being impacted. And so this bill has a piece that would, for the Department of Agriculture, would waive late penalties in 2021 for a swath of businesses, including food manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers. And that would be approximately about $54,000 in fee waivers. In addition, we'd also waive state license issued under the Department of Public Safety on bars that want to serve alcohol until 2 a.m. and caterers who serve alcohol. So there are a lot of fees that are more on the local level, but there are certain things we could do at the state level to lighten that burden. And so this would have an impact of about $150,000 on the general fund. And finally, the last piece of this provision in the proposal calls on the Met Council to refund fees paid to small breweries or to credit them on their applications for wastewater permits and regarding their strength charge fees that they would pay in 2021. So it would refund and save these small breweries approximately $140,000. So not significant, but in the grand scheme of things, it's helpful to our small businesses who we know are struggling, and it works in tandem with the larger piece of this package. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Goodhue, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The technical aspects of the bill have been covered, but I want to touch on a couple things. As Representative Baker said, these times are more than challenging for our restaurants and our bars and our small business owners. And I just want to remind the listeners and the members the impact and the value that these businesses have in our communities. From our local baker in Red Wing, Billy, at Hanish, who made 1,000 cakes for 8 area high schools when they couldn't have their graduations. And to Glenn at Bayside Steakhouse, who poignantly wrote on Facebook this week how much he misses the people coming in for their birthdays, celebrating their anniversaries, coming in when they need to talk about a problem at their job, or coming in after their kids have had a good report card. The fabric of the communities happens in these restaurants, and they are missing their community members as much as they're missing doing their work that they're so good at. So I want those business owners to know we hear you, we've been fighting for you, and as Representative Baker said, this bill doesn't do everything that you need, and we know that, but we know that the help is coming, and we did the best we could in a very short time frame. We appreciate the sales tax revenue that you pay, the property tax revenue that you pay that support our schools, the employees that you hire and that you want back, that are part of your family, the tourism that you attract when people come to our communities and want to eat in our restaurants, all those things that make our communities strong. And just to give an indication of how difficult these months have been, I wanted to review what this has been like. March 17th, bars and restaurants were restricted to delivery and carry out. March 28th, we had a stay-at-home order. 11 days later, April 8th, we had a closure of bars and restaurants. 10 more days go by. April 30th, that was extended. Continued a temporary closure of bars and restaurants. 3 more weeks, June 1st, so that's longer than 3 weeks, months. We finally got to open up for outside dining. We remember how excited we all were for that. June 10th, restaurants were reopened at 50% capacity and 6 feet of distancing. We could eat inside again. I think that was the first time from March 17th to June 10th. And then November 13th, capacity reduced inside and closures time at 4 in the afternoon, 10 at night. I don't remember exactly when the curfew was or the closure. And then November 21st, closed again. This has been the seesaw that these business owners have been under for 8 and 9 months. And this is what Representative Baker's talking about when we are trying to get back to some business certainty for these folks. We need to work together. We need to have a plan. We need to have notice. And we need to have money and support if we are going to have businesses closed by the government through no fault of their own. We are trying to do that. We work very hard on this bill, and we hope it's coming fast enough to all of you. I urge everybody to support this with a strong yes this evening. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Davney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We're hearing a lot tonight about the challenges that the pandemic has created for Minnesota businesses and Minnesota families. And we know that every day Minnesota's students bring those challenges with them into their schools, whether that's walking in a door or zooming in from their bedroom. And this bill contains one provision to help respond in one small way to those challenges. Members, by December 15th of each year, we require schools to report the number of their students who qualify for either free or reduced price lunch aid. This year, given the pandemic, it's been very challenging for schools and districts to connect with eligible families and collect the required signed forms. At this point, only about 45 of Minnesota's 355 traditional public schools are open, many for traditional in face-to-face learning. They're in a distance learning mode, as are the majority of our charter schools and many, many private schools as well. The numbers of students who qualify for food aid applies not only to meal support reimbursement, but also as a factor in determining how much compensatory education funding a school receives the following year. All Minnesota school districts receive compensatory aid targeted at providing services for low-income students. The provisions in the bill extend the reporting deadline by 3 weeks to January 4th for just this year. The cost of the students whose eligibility is certified between December 16th and January 4th will be tracked separately. The projected $4.8 million cost to this provision will be reflected in the February budget forecast as a fiscal year 22 cost. In addition, there's a provision related to this, making clear that if the federal government ever does provide aid to Minnesota and to states and families in the country, that eligible federal aid will supplant the state aid to fund this provision. Thank you. I urge support for the bill.
The member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Madam Speaker and members, first of all, I'd like to thank all those who have been working so hard on this very, very important issue. This isn't a perfect bill, but it offers some critical help where it's needed. Many of our small businesses are threatened, some holding on by a thread. Now, it's not because of mismanagement. It's not because of anything they've done, but because the state of Minnesota, through executive orders, has closed them completely or drastically curtailed their business. We must offer them relief, but the real relief is to let them completely reopen. Even the 50% capacity was workable compared to what restaurants have had to endure today. The level of contagion from restaurants is slight. We must be fair. To inhibit our small businesses while leaving big box stores virtually untouched makes no sense. Representative Davney just mentioned schools, and while I'm at it, this isn't part of the bill, we need to get our schools and school activities back in gear as well. The harm being done to our young people and our education system is greater than what harm could come from the virus. I'm also pleased that the daycares are eligible under the county portion of the bill. I think that's very important. but we must still remain vigilant and cautious in some areas, but the focus should be in the areas of high risk. This is an important step in the right direction, and I thank those who have been working on it and urge a yes vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of the bill, and I also want to thank my colleagues who have worked so hard on the bill over the last few weeks. As you know, I have also been working on the original group that was trying to help before the most recent shutdown order. And I hear every day, as I know many of you do, from your businesses, and it's heartbreaking. On the day of the governor's shutdown order on November 18th, the next day, one of the bars and restaurants in my district, he owns it, he called me and he said, he was crying, and he said, I had a meeting today on Zoom telling 74 employees that they were getting laid off for the next 4 weeks. Said, these people are my family. Some of them have been with me 20 years, and I'm laying them off at our busiest 4 weeks in the holiday season, and they don't know what they're going to do. And as has been said many times, I appreciate Representative Haley going through the timeline. Our businesses were shut down for a full quarter, the bars and restaurants, in the spring into the early summer. Then they opened at 50% capacity. And now they've been shut down for another 4 weeks. This is not tenable. And so I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this. We have a responsibility, even though we, the legislature, did not shut down these businesses, when the government has taken this action, we have a responsibility to try and help them survive. This is not enough. I hope our federal partners also step up. I appreciate my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who co-signed the bipartisan letter we sent to our Minnesota delegation, asking them for help. And I appreciate that the money the federal government spends, the first dollars of that will go to reimburse the state if this bill passes tonight. I think that's very fiscally responsible. But we just need to keep these businesses afloat until they can really reopen. And as been said many times, that's what they want. They showed when they were open at 50% capacity that they could do so safely. They invested thousands of dollars they did not have in their bank accounts in plexiglass and new ways to run their operation, and they really did a great job. And so I appreciate all the hard work. I hope members will support this bill, and I hope that it's a bridge that can get them until they can really reopen, because otherwise our communities are going to suffer. These job creators will be gone, and I think it will be a long time for us to be able to help rebuild our small communities and our main streets if we don't get this done. Thank you, members.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Meckland.
Madam Speaker.
Representative Meckland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have talked to probably 50 to 60 business owners within central Minnesota area in the last several days. Many of these people I've explained this what's coming forward. The constant thing I keep hearing is that their concern is that they don't have any assurance of what comes after this. If they take this grant, if you will, what piece of bread will they be begging for in 3 to 4 weeks going forward? And that is their concern. And it's mine as well, because they're hurting so bad. And while I know that Representative Baker and Haley, Representative Noor, and I wish I could remember all of them, have all worked so hard on this, but I don't think it goes quite far enough to assure them that they're not going to be in the same spot in 4 weeks as they are now. And I'm very concerned based on the fact that they don't have no assurance. We don't know what the governor is going to do going forward.
And we'd like to see where that guidance is coming from at this point in time. And yet we don't know. So at this point, while this is a great step forward, I don't think at this point I can support this bill. So thank you.
The member from Mahoney, Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a few things about the bill that, we hear the bill, we always hear the good things about the bill, but just so people know and understand some of the things that are going on here. For the people that will get this money, it is taxable. And so you need to know that that's going to go into your gross. The deductions may or may not, the expenses may or may not be deductible. Depending on what they are, you need to talk to an accountant on that. So you're sure where you're going to end up at the end of the year. So you're not paying back a third or maybe more of this in taxes. The other thing that people should understand is that, we're talking about these extensions of these relief funds and the unemployment, which I'll get to in a minute. And the talk is not about ending the shutdown. The talk is, you're talking April 1st, and in some cases I've heard June, and we don't see an end of this for the foreseeable future. Now, hopefully in a few minutes here, we'll be voting on the resolution once again to bring the shutdown for a vote to the floor. I'll talk about that when that comes up, but I certainly hope people are thinking about this. We're looking at numbers that don't make sense in some of this. We're talking about urgency. We need to get this out urgent. But the small amount of money that's going out, it's a huge amount for the state, but it's a small amount for small businesses. And I've heard from multiple businesses that say that even though they're showing way more than a 30% decline in business because of the way this thing is put together, they're not eligible for this. And so that's a problem as well. Unemployment. If you're looking at what we're doing to our small businesses, we've drained our unemployment fund. And so by law, as I understand it, a lot of these guys are going to be looking at a 14% rate when they do get back to work, or maybe even before, the way things are going. So people need to understand that. I've heard multiple times now that the feds may or may not reimburse for this money. Well, bring it back to the real world. It's still tax dollars, even if they do, but it's still up in the air whether or not they will. And so to continue to say, we may not have to pay this back is a little bit disingenuous, because it all is going to have to be paid back. We talk about we feel bad for the businesses, but we continue to let them shut down. We're not getting behind our small businesses. We're throwing a few crumbs to them in hopes that they'll stay silent while the chaos and the disaster continues. This is not the right way to go. Just to give people out there a small example of where this money is going to go, in the funds that go to the counties alone, my county, Mahoney County, going to get roughly a little over $250,000, while Hennepin County gets over $25.2 million. And so once again, we're seeing that and other things in this bill. We're pumping money into the metro area once again in my estimation that amounts to no more than another bailout. Furthermore, we're looking at a bill dealing with small business, and that's great. But we still have schools that are suffering, and we have kids that are doing poorly and need to get back into life. They need to stop being afraid. And so this is just, in my opinion, nothing more than something that's thrown out there to make people think we're doing something while the governor continues to lock us down. This is not going to go over well. I hope people really think about this even before they apply for these grants. Like I say, talk to your accountants and make sure this is going to work for you.
The member from Clearwater, Representative Grossell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I suppose not very many people wanted to speak on this, or going to get some of us out of the way early. You know, I'm not going to say thank you for this to anyone. You know, that might be a little bit abrasive, that might be rude. But I know everybody was working hard. But to be throwing our small businesses a few crumbs now and again from the government, when the government is responsible for what is happening to them, I won't say thank you for that. I won't say thank you while the governor holds his boot on the necks of these small business owners. While he keeps fleecing the flock, keeps demanding that they do everything, keeps telling people that it's their fault that the COVID virus is here, that it's spreading. I won't say thank you for that. I won't say thank you to anybody who will not stand up and help bring an end to the governor's authority so that we don't need a bill like this, so these businesses can go back to work and thrive as they were before, instead of choking them to death like has been going on for months, way back in March. And I got a short letter from someone who was on the front lines trying to help these small businesses to survive, trying to help them find ways to stay above water, while all the while the governor's mandates has a boot on their head pushing them under. I just got done, it says, I just read the release put out as a proposal for state COVID relief. And I must say, it is an embarrassment what is being suggested as solutions. This is another example of the disconnect of those in control in the metro with life here in the real world. The plan suggested doesn't even begin to help the businesses that have been destroyed by the governor's orders that began way back in March. You know, the addressing of these needs, it won't be done by just a few checks from the government. These people need to go back to work. You know, one of the things that this individual said is, things are not good here local, not good at all. Says, I am soon going to be out of assistance options too. And we have neighbors trying to help neighbors continuously. And it's as though every time we ask the government or the governor makes a demand of these small business owners, they jump through the hoops. They keep trying to do what's right. They keep trying to do what's right, only to get kicked in the teeth again and again and again. I will not say thank you for that. Everyone sits here and collects a check every month, collects their pay for doing their legislative work. But everyone sits here and they will not stand up for these people and say enough is enough. Some of us will stand up and say enough is enough. But there are some that I know would and should. I'm tired of the governor and the DFL continuously trying to shame people into thinking that bills like these are good ideas. that these people, these citizens that we are supposed to be representing, you're treating them as though they are just mere subjects. Here's some breadcrumbs from the governor's table. Be happy with it. You're destroying these businesses and these communities, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. That is where the shame should be. Those who stand or just sit and do nothing, those who sit and do nothing, you see the evil before you. You remain silent and you remain inactive. This is not going to help these businesses, and I've heard from many businesses in my district. I've heard from bankers, I've heard from everybody up here. They're looking at this and just shaking their heads. Doesn't the governor trust the citizens of this state to do what's right? Government should not be dictating to our citizens how they should be living. We should be helping them, not hindering them. And we certainly should not be driving our businesses out, driving our businesses into the dirt. Folks, things are not good in this state. Just like this man said, things are not good local. Not good at all. And they're soon going to run out of assistance officers to help their neighbors. This isn't the answer. The answer is to allow these businesses to open and to take care of their neighbors. They can do it a heck of a lot better than the government can.
The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this bill is going to become a press talking point on a referendum of whether or not we support small business in Minnesota. I can tell you that regardless of my vote here today, that I definitely support the small businesses, the restaurants, the different things that we're talking about here today. Like many of you, I've talked to dozens, if not hundreds, of businesses in my district, some outside my district, talked to employees, talked to managers, talked to county commissioners. I've talked to anyone that has a vested interest. In rural Minnesota, as you know, everyone kind of knows everyone, so there's a lot of crossover. One commissioner knows these two businesses, who knows this person. When they first shut down the restaurants, they allowed for pickup, so I went around and made videos and said, hey, guess what? It's perfectly safe to go. Be sure and shop your local people. And people I know did that in many different ways. I don't think I was the only one. But that's the sort of thing that we do in the communities. I can tell you that my wife and I probably eat out probably 4 or 5 times of what we used to, just so that we can give these local businesses a little bit of money. In the past couple weeks, when this came up again, I talked to several of them again. A couple of them spontaneously called me. So people are asking if we care, but they're all also asking if we have a better government. And in this past year, our government, particularly from the governor, we have not been behaving well towards the people of this state. There's been multiple times in the legislature when the governor has allowed us to have a voice. It's usually to spend money. We've done that many times here. It's been a consistent process. Last minute, no committees or a makeshift committee. And if you want to include Ways and Means as a committee, I guess you can include that. This one, 3 weeks from special session. The last one, 3 weeks before an election. General fund money is used when there's a tight budget. We have to have an agreement. I heard earlier we have to have an agreement because the Senate is already sine-died. We can't do anything. We know this is going to pass, folks. For anyone watching, this is going to pass. There was an agreement that was made with the Senate. There was an agreement made with the governor. How it was formed, the reason why we recessed for a while was so that we can get that in shape, and then the Senate could do it because we chose to do it that way first, then move over. I'm sure that was part of the agreement in the back rooms, was just a handful of people talking. That's not betterment. That's not better government for the people, and they're asking that also. Folks, this is crazy. I just jotted down, why do businesses in a free country have to beg? Why did we make this about, well, this is going to happen, so as has been said many times tonight, at least we can give these people a little bit of money. It's probably not enough, and guess what? It's not going to be enough, but at least it's something. At least we can show that we care. And I do believe that the people in this room, I do believe the people that worked on this do care, okay? I'm not questioning the integrity of that. I just don't know why we keep doing this over and over and over again. I do have just one more point that I want to make, but I'm going to have to do it by asking if the author of this bill, Chair Mahoney, if he would answer a few questions, Madam Speaker.
Representative Mahoney, will you yield?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
He will yield. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Chair Mahoney, there's about 4 or 5 questions. They're kind of rapid, and I'll do the proper procedure, but I just want people to know that these are not an endless number of questions. I just kind of want to draw out a point here. So in the first section, the bill jumped around, so it's not Article 1 anymore, but the first section where we're going to be sending money out to restaurants, one of them is bars, and we did look this up, and in bars, are gentlemen clubs or strip clubs included with bars in this? Would they be receiving money?
Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sad to say, if you fall into the category of a 30% reduction in your sales from the 2 quarters from last year, yes. And the reason for that is that the Department of Revenue can't separate that out. There's not a computer program to separate that out. There was not a single vote in support of gentlemen's clubs or whatever. There was a collective gasp or gulp, whichever you care to call it, when we realized that. And we're not happy with that. But speed was more important.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Chair Mahoney continue to yield for
He
questions?
will yield. Representative Miller.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Speaker, Chair Mahoney, under the county fund, is it possible for adult entertainment stores to receive funding from this program?
Representative Mahoney.
Only if the county commissioner wants to lose his election or his or her election.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for answering that. There is that possibility. And the reason why I bring these two up is, I mean, they're distasteful, okay? And I'm not suggesting that anyone thinks that they're otherwise, but anyone that knows that since I've been here, I've worked a lot on human trafficking. These are 2 bastions of human trafficking. So understand that there is, for one, for sure, money will go if they qualify under the guidelines, and another one may receive from locations where illegal activities are going on. Your taxpayer dollars, folks, could be going to that. In one case, it probably will be going to it. I am promised, Representative Mahoney, I won't squeeze you on that issue. I do have just 2 more questions if he'll continue to yield, Madam Speaker.
He will yield. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Mahoney, if the businesses, this is under the county portion of it, if the businesses in the county don't like the decision, meaning they didn't get enough or they didn't get any or whatever, if they don't like it, do they have an appeal process to deed? Do they have an appeal process in any way that they can readdress this?
Representative Mahoney.
No.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I promise this is the final question, and then I will make my final point. Will he continue to yield for a question?
He will. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Mahoney, will everyone who needs money receive what they need?
Representative Mahoney.
Of course not, Representative Miller.
Okay, well, thanks, Chair Mahoney. And
Representative Miller.
I apologize, Madam Speaker. And Chair Mahoney, I do thank you. You've been very respectful about this, and I don't want to be disrespectful or cheap shots, so I hope it's not coming across as that. I just want to make the point, and I could go on in a lot of other areas. I just kind of picked the low-hanging fruit, as they say, on a couple things that were obvious to me. There is no way that in the process, if you want to call it that we've put forward on this, there is no way that we can address the needs, the concerns, the problems, and we are responsible for the taxpayer money. And then I also hear from Representative Grossel, some of the other representatives, that they're talking to people, and guess what? The businesses are saying, we don't know that this is even going to significantly help us. And I hear things like, thanks for sending us scraps and stuff like that. And by the way, that's been the consistent message that I've heard. I want to close with this. I received a text from a business owner about 2 or 3 days ago. I will tell you, this is consistent with my business owners in my district. And again, anyone that knows me, when I say I talk to business owners in my district, you can count on it. I have talked to a lot of them. And it says, good morning, Tim. I just heard on the radio that the legislature is working out details of a COVID relief bill for businesses and individuals affected by the governor's, in quotation marks, dial turning. It seems far more appropriate for the concerned legislators to vote to end the governor's emergency powers and allow Minnesota businesses to open and operate in a free market once again. This dictatorial rule of the state and of private businesses must end. I couldn't agree more with this constituent. We can fix this, members. We've been trying for months to end this. And when we get to the motion after a while to end the emergency powers, I'm going to address this. But we have a resolution for this. But this is what government does. We create problems for private citizens. We harm them. We destroy their lives. And then we throw a little bit of money their way and say, aren't you thankful for us? I'm not real proud to be part of the legislature right now. I am. I'm not going to be supporting this bill. I am going to be supporting the people in my district. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. A lot of good things have been said. I look at the bill, and I think there's one part of the bill that's very indicative of the problem we have. Page 2 of the bill guarantees that the only businesses that are going to receive money from this are the businesses that are in good terms with the Minnesota Department of Revenue. If you haven't paid your tax to the big government, you aren't getting this money. That's what it says on page 2. So members, this is government first. The people who need this money are the people who are accepted from the bill. They're the ones that need it the worst. But we have language in here, ostensibly, I don't know, Representative Mahoney or Representative Baker, I don't think you wrote this language. I would guess it came from the Minnesota Department of Revenue. I wonder how much of this bill was written by the executive branch. The people who need the money worst are not going to get it in this bill because government has to be sure that they're getting their money squeezed out of them first. That is a sick way to approach life. If we are truly going to help businesses, why wouldn't we give money to those businesses that need it the worst? Because they aren't genuflecting to the government at this moment. That's why. Members, Minnesota has become an island. We're the only state. None of the states around us are doing this. a massive government lockdown, locking down major parts of its economy and freezing economic activity, impoverishing our small businesses, caused by this government and Governor Walz's boot on the throat of our businesses. And now we bring a taxpayer-funded bailout. And we're supposed to think that this is going to help these businesses breathe again. We know what the answer is. Members, this bill spends $242 million. If you do the math, that's $41.86 per person in Minnesota. If we follow Representative Miller's lead and simply end the peacetime emergency after we dispose of this bill, we would find that Minnesotans all across our state could spend the $41.86 per person that this bill does, and then some, to help our small businesses recover in a major hurry. But no, we've got not 5 weeks of unemployment insurance, but we're going to pay people not to work for 13 weeks. 13 weeks of paying people not to work. How, members, does that bring our state to work again? How? Of course, the government employees and those well off to do in big corporations haven't felt any of this. Does anyone know a government employee that lost their jobs in this government shutdown with Governor Walz's boot on their neck, other than the 2 commissioners that were relieved of duty by the Senate? By the way, one of them got another job in the Department of Health, I'm told. 5 weeks of unemployment to go into January would have been plenty in this bill, provided an on-ramp for Minnesotans to get back to work, provided a signal to the governor that this emergency is over and it's time to get back to life again. Let Minnesotans live again. Let businesses start to recover from his activities again. But no, we've got 13 weeks to create a long-term expectation that this shutdown is going to even last longer. A deliberate action by the Democrats, of course. The socialist-loving Democrats love this shutdown stuff. They love people to be dependent on government. And we've got some misguided Republicans, members, who have supported this extension of 13 weeks too. Shameful. So this is the second pole of the bipolar construction of socialism. The first one is to control the people, and then it is to feed them. That's what the government is doing. First they control them, and then they throw them some crumbs, as others have said. So dictator Walz would like to make businesses captive and then throw the business owners some crumbs to pacify them for yet another month of captivity. Representative Mahoney, businesses don't need our fake gratuity. This is a quintessential example of socialism. Control cloaked in gratuity. Members, we need to vote against this bill and then vote to free our businesses from the dictator down the street with one of the next motions to come forward. That will give the freedom, hope, and opportunity that this governor is denying Minnesota businesses and Minnesota families all across our state. And that is the answer moving forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Sibley, Representative Grunhagen.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I do want to thank the people who worked on this. I would just say ditto to them. And, you know, I was 6 years chief negotiator with the school board with certified staff and administration. And I understand the grind that comes out of this, okay? And sometimes the heartache and tears even. But so I do appreciate their effort. I do have a few concerns, though. One is, you know, passing this bill, will this send the message to the governor that he can keep the shutdown going as we give, you know, this money to some businesses, not all of them? And it's interesting to me, according to the information I have, I thought the governor was supposed to have a press conference before our session, and now he moved it to Wednesday as if to see what we do on this. Or maybe he'll be able to address this in that. Again, that's just a observation. You know, I've got several business owners. I won't read all their comments, but they are from my district, and I did promise to represent them on the shutdown. And first off, here's what's so unnerving to them. They look at South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and even Iowa, and they don't have these types of shutdowns down there. And they're not experiencing this, you know, the same level of infections or deaths. And then also they look at our Minneapolis International Airport, and I have firsthand testimony from a person down there. Their bars and restaurants got open, and the governor gave them an exception. So it seems like if you kiss the ring of the governor, you get an exception. You know, and in the last shutdown, we had the candy store out of 169. They got an exception. And casinos also don't seem to be affected by this shutdown. But yet we hammer our small businesses, most of whom want to operate safely and are willing to cooperate. You know, there's a recent article that was just published as of today, actually. And it says Minnesota restaurant is being fined by Governor Walz and Keith Ellison $9,000 for noncompliance in Lynn, Minnesota. Then two other restaurants, one in Nisswa and another in East Grand Forks, are being sued by the state of Minnesota. Think about that. Honest Minnesotans who own businesses who are trying to survive, and their government turns on them rather than trying to work with them. When neighboring states don't have those types of shutdowns and requirements. Now, some people are going to call that tyrannical, a tyrannical government that is attacking their own small businesses. And unfortunately, that seems to be the clear evidence. But to get back, you know, most of these businesses, they don't want handouts. They just want to reopen safely. And I'm going to read a few comments from businesses in my district. First one is from Gail. He owns two businesses that fall under the shutdown. The last shutdown, the first one, he lost 20% of his staff during the last shutdown. This shutdown, he had to lay off all 35 employees. And guess what he's doing? He's helping feed one of his laid off workers and their family because they don't have the money to provide for their expenses and their families. That's the business owner. When you're a business owner, like I am, and you have employees like I do, you care about them. I can relate to him. You care about what happens to those people, okay? And I've written out checks and helped not only my associates and employees, but also my customers, depending on their situation when they've had difficulties. You know, that's the type of people that you're attacking. Okay, the next person is Sheila. Sheila hasn't taken a salary from her business since March. She bought and opened her business in Q1, January, February, March of 2020. She is a single parent of 2 teenage boys and pays for monthly health insurance. Recently, her car needed a $600 repair, and she is trying to figure out how to provide Christmas for her boys. Trying to stay positive around her boys so they do not worry is taking a mental toll on her. She was not able to use any of the grants or loans due to her new this year business. She has substantial monthly overhead and just a few members keeping membership just to help her out. The numbers don't equate to paying the bills. Give her a chance, members. Give her a chance. That's what we're talking about. Then we have Tara. While closed, Tara pivoted quickly to make home kits, so she tried something else. It was a successful idea. She was well received, but it doesn't cover the cost to keep her studio open. Weekly, she manages the additional work of prepping these kits while also paying additional supplies to make them portable. She has even taken up free painting events simply to keep her customers engaged with her and to give them joy. Again, these are the type of people. When you're a business owner, you're chief cook and bottle washer, right? You go home last, you shut the lights off last, you're the first one there when there's a problem, either with your facility or with your employees or customers or whatever. That's the people you're attacking. The governor is, and Attorney General Ellison with this shutdown. Then there's Joe. I just got a couple left. He owns 2 franchises. He is not receiving any corporate support other than advertising. They have not qualified for grants due to their size of staff and past revenues. Probably won't get any this time. Many assume they have deep pockets, but just like the rest of these businesses, these 2 Joes are trying to make a living and scratch around to keep the business open. Finally, members, is Danielle. Danielle had to post a video telling the public she is fighting for her business. Tearfully, she explained the lack of inventory because there is no income to purchase the inventory. She is considering all her options and utilizing an advisor to help her plan the next phase of her business she loves. Lack of inventory equals lack of revenue equals lack and does not pay the bills. So members, I could go on, okay, but I think you get the point. Some of these are single moms that are running small businesses and they're putting their whole life into it. And we're coming down with them with the force of government. Think about that. Okay, but you say, Glenn, what about the deaths, okay? And what about the medical data? Well, when Governor Walz ordered the shutdown, he did not provide the data or science that would justify closing them. In fact, Lifetime Fitness has produced very detailed data that proves the governor is wrong. Lifetime Fitness has sued the governor for the data that went into the closure decision. And as of now, as far as I know, he still hasn't released it. And by the way, Lifetime Fitness shows that only 2 to 3/10% of COVID infections can be traced to gyms. Why are we doing this, members? And then we turn around and we keep abortion clinics open for the sexual exploitation of women and killing the innocent unborn to keep the blood money flowing. Finally, members, I know some of you are going to say, well, what about the deaths, Glenn? Well, the recent article, I believe in the Star Tribune, rated Minnesota the 46th worst state in the nation in protecting people in long-term care and assisted living. We have still close to 70% of those people are the people that are reported as deaths, members. Those are the people we should be protecting. And we've done a poor job of it, and the governor's done a poor job of it. And in fact, at times by putting infectious patients into the nursing homes, it seems as if they're trying to run up the score. I hope that's wrong. Then members, consider this fact. The Minnesota Department of Health reported Minnesota mortality or deaths from all causes in 2017 to be 44,361. So total deaths in 2017, according to the Minnesota Department of Health, is 44,361. Well, as of December 9th, 2020, the CDC reported that Minnesota's year-to-date deaths from all causes, not just COVID-19, and all deaths are regrettable. We all agree on that. We're not trying to minimize this. But the CDC reported as of December 9th, so there's still about 3 weeks left, but the year-to-date deaths from all causes, not just COVID-19, is 42,148. That's about 2,000, over 2,000 less than 2017. And we didn't close our bars and restaurants. We didn't close our gyms. We didn't close our schools, members. Now, there's some medical professionals that allege that some of the COVID deaths are being reported because the reimbursement from the government is better, okay? And these are medical professionals. Now, the interesting thing, I had 2 constituents call me in the last few months and say that their grandparent in the nursing home died, and they knew it was from cancer or a heart attack, and yet the death certificate showed COVID-19. Now, why would they do that, members? Now, these are grandchildren of the people who died, who knew these people intimately. They know they didn't die from COVID-19, and yet that's what was on. Now, maybe they had a little test of it, but they didn't die for that reason, and yet that was the primary thing put on the death certificate. So, you know, I was raised on a farm, and when you smell a skunk in the wood pile, you're pretty sure there is one in there. And it does seem like we're inflating these deaths of COVID-19 for sometimes financial gain. And again, medical professionals, including doctors, have made this allegation. It's circumstantial. I probably couldn't prove it in a court. Okay, members, then just a comment about the unemployment. I did some additional research on that, and what I found from a source up at the Capitol is that there's about 10 to 12 reasons people on unemployment should be looking for jobs, and if they don't look, they should be eliminated from unemployment, okay? Because we have widespread concern from business owners that they cannot get help and that people previously working will not show up for work because of the unemployment benefits they're getting. So I checked with this person, and he said that DEED is not enforcing those 10 to 12 principles that are in statute. So our state government is not making sure or trying to make sure that people receiving unemployment are bodily able to work are out there every week looking for work. They're not doing any type of verification, according to this individual. Members, which side of the aisle you're on, you should be concerned about that, because we're looking at a deficit with this bill, if the unemployment is all paid out, of over $1 billion in our unemployment fund. And Representative O'Neill has done excellent work on this, and I don't want to take her thunder away from her if she's going to speak. But members, think of what we're doing, okay? Think of what we're doing to these law-abiding, hardworking citizens of the state and the anguish and misery we're bringing on them compared to the states around us. And we're not doing any better in terms of infections or deaths, and in some case, worse. So members, this is crumbs. I hope the governor doesn't use it as an excuse to extend his emergency powers. If the unemployment was maybe 3 or 4 weeks, it would do a lot to make me think this is more reasonable, because then we could take a look at it in session again to see what the governor does on Wednesday. But I'm conflicted on the bill. I think there's some good parts, and I want to ditto the efforts of the people who worked on this. I well understand what negotiations take, and I did it for months some years to try to get a settlement that was good for the district, taxpayer, and the students, and still keep a pay schedule for certified staff and administration that we could hire good people in and be competitive in the conference. I understand that. And I understand nobody's going to get everything. But when I look at this bill, I don't know. It's taken us, I don't know if it's taken us in the right direction completely. And I thank you for listening, and please, let's do what's right for the people of the state of Minnesota. I'm conflicted, and I'll see what I do. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Washington, Representative Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I will say thank you. I want to say thank you to Representative Baker, Haley, New, and Garofalo on our side of the aisle. Thank you to Chair Mahoney, Representative Knorr, and thank you, Senator Pratt. It's good that we're providing assistance, but this should have been done before the governor issued Executive Order 20-99. Businesses have waited almost a month to find out if they get any restitution for the government-forced shutdown. The government left businesses out in the cold when he issued the latest executive order. They had just days to react. I talked to a restaurant owner that had 3 upcoming weddings they had already purchased the food for. 2 of the 3 had to cancel, so the restaurant owner paid for the food he couldn't sell. He lost that money and won't get it back. Now the governor keeps putting off his announcement on his intention for extending the closure. He was going to make the announcement on Friday, then he was going to make the announcement today. Now it appears he'll tell them on Wednesday whether or not they can reopen this weekend. It's cruel and unconscionable to continue to leave these businesses out in the cold. Now this bill has some good, but also has some areas of concern for me. First, the good. This bill provides much needed relief for movie theaters. This industry has been devastated by the pandemic. Even during the summer months when they were open with restrictions, there was a lack of new releases from Hollywood. This bill provides relief on a per-screen basis, so the relief scales up to the size of the operation. While I realize the metro area has countless opportunities for entertainment, greater Minnesota areas are very limited, and in many cases, the local theater is the only form of out-of-home entertainment. Also, not only do theaters contribute greatly to local and state taxes, they also provide much-needed jobs for entry-level young people and contribute heavily to the livability factor in a community. By the way, if you're in Hastings on this Saturday between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m., stop by the Hastings Marcus Theater for curbside popcorn purchase. Help them pay the rent. So that's the good part of the bill, much needed relief to help save an entire form of entertainment in this state. Where I think this bill falls short is in the calculation used to determine who qualifies for the first bucket of relief from deed. This bill is intended to help those who are affected now, closed now, those with little or no income now. But to qualify, we're comparing sales from 2019 to 2020 for April through September when these businesses were largely open. Many restaurants did okay during those months. Customers came back to support them. In Hastings, the city and the Chamber of Commerce bent over backwards to provide options for outdoor patios, and the residents were happy to support them. As a result, a half dozen or so restaurants in my district that I talked to will not qualify for this relief. They have no money coming in today, and they don't know when that'll change, but they don't qualify. They can still get assistance from the bucket that funnels through the counties, but not the deed money from the state, the quickest relief. That's where this bill fails to help those who need it. I wish we could have had a meaningful debate on that, but the Senate already adjourned sine die and went home. This bill is now take it or leave it. A small number of hardworking and diligent legislators made the deal for the rest of us, and the deal's done. We can't make changes. If we change it, we kill it. So, Madam Speaker, thank you to all those that worked on this for the time and effort they put in. And while this bill isn't perfect, it is necessary. It'll help some, and I will support this bill for the good that it does. Madam Speaker, over and out.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'd like to offer a slightly different perspective than we've heard tonight. We've heard a lot of repeated things, a lot of the same kind of talking points over and over again, but I wanted to pick up on some things that Representative Green, Grossel, Gruenhagen, and a couple others had started on. And I want to talk about the unemployment insurance aspect of this bill. Let's start at the beginning. So when we started 2020, the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund was a healthy balance of $1.7 billion. That's a very, very high balance. That's a very healthy balance. When COVID happened, shutdown happened, stay-at-home orders happened, that money dissipated and disappeared in a blink. By the end of July, that trust fund was bankrupt. Then we started to borrow from the federal government. To date, we have borrowed $790 million. This bill would add to that total another $520 million, and that's an estimation from the unemployment insurance folks, and they do great work. And I was fortunate to serve on the Unemployment Insurance Advisory Council for at least 4 years, I think it was. And the people there do an incredible amount of work, and they did an incredible amount of work when we asked them to do what we did just in these last few months. But again, that would bring us, if we do this bill, that would be $520 million. And where does that money come from? Well, the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund is paid exclusively by businesses that have employees, then they are allowed to draw from it if they are laid off. So this is on the backs of our businesses. The total between the two, so it was $790 million up to this bill. If we pass this bill, that's an additional $520 million, which is a total of $1.3 billion that we will owe the federal government, that we are borrowing from them. Now, back in 2008 and 9, when we had the Great Recession, we also borrowed from the federal government. And they allowed a debt to be forgiven to Minnesota of about 90%. We don't know if they're going to do that again. And let me tell you what is different now than what happened back in 2008 and 9. So just a few moments ago, I went on usdebtclock.org. And if you've never been on it, every single member in this legislature should look at it and look at it often. But let me tell you what it said as of a few moments ago, because it is updated real time. And as of a few moments ago, the debt from the US government, the federal government, was $27.4 trillion and rising every second. Now, that is a number that most people probably know, but here's a number you may not know. So our US government is already $27 trillion in debt. That's budgets gone, money's gone out. There is no turning back from that. But what's not talked about very often is the unfunded liability. So these are promises made with current policy of the federal government, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And that number has risen substantially, and now that number is at $156 trillion. I'll repeat that, $156 trillion of unfunded liability. And that is just Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid with current policy as it is moving into the future. That's money promised that we do not have money to pay. So let's put that into perspective. So that is significantly worse now than it was in 2008 and 9. So it's possible that the federal government would forgive 90%. If they do not, just the amount owed to them, again, was $1.3 billion of the trust fund. Now that just brings it to zero. We still have to fill it back so it's usable. Now we don't have to get it all the way back to $1.7 billion, but we should get it close to $1 billion. That's sort of a comfortable balance. And in order to do that, that would be probably about $2.3 billion would get us comfortably back. Guess who pays that in? Well, I just said all the businesses that have employees that would qualify for unemployment insurance. So if we pass this bill, we are putting on the backs of the businesses in the state of Minnesota who are already heavily burdened by shutdown, by stay-at-home orders that happened before, all of the effects of COVID. We're putting on their backs $520 million more. So yes, we are giving them $216 million to those that are in absolute dire need, and they will probably close without this money. So on the front side, we're giving them $216 million. On the back side, we are going to be extracting out of them $520 million at minimum just for this bill. Now, there is a possibility that maybe the federal government would forgive 90% of that, but we don't know that. If the federal government does forgive that, that's still $131 million off the backs of businesses just to bring it to zero. And then you've got another $1 billion, you have to put it back in so that it actually works properly. Now let's just talk about one other thing. Let's talk about what Representative Mahoney had said. 126,000 people are unemployed and their unemployment is about to run out. Okay, I wrote that down. It was 126,000 people. Now I looked at a jobs openings report for the state of Minnesota, and you know what the good news is? There are approximately 120,000 job openings. But let me tell you what's really happening in the real world of business right now. So let me read to you something from a temporary staffing agency. And they're all over Minnesota, and this is just a little pulse as to what's really happening and how willing people really are to work. So this is a quote from an owner of a temporary staffing agency who has multiple branches all over Minnesota. He says this: in a normal year, unemployment at current levels would make finding people easy, as there would be many people actively seeking work, but 2020 is a long way from normal. We are spending record amounts on recruiting budgets to get only a few candidates. Statistically, we know that people are out of work and they should be applying and they should be looking for jobs. Of those candidates who actually apply, our recruiters are actively reaching out to them immediately and less than 25% have an interest in the position that they applied for, much less any other position that we have available. Of those, we consistently see the no-show rate at interview of 75%. We aren't the only ones dealing with this. We hear it daily from our customers and our competitors. Now, let me just give you one other solid example. There was an employee at one of these branches, and on just one day, she made phone calls to try to fill one position. You know how many phone calls she made? Well, I'm going to tell you. 200 phone calls. Yes, she called 200 people that had expressed interest in finding a job. She had 0 people respond and say, yes, I would like to come in for an interview and get a job. 0 people. This bill is a colossal mistake. You don't give businesses $214 million on the front end and then extract out of them in the same bill $520 million and call it a good day. This is not a good day. This is not a good bill. This is not a good plan. And I haven't even gotten to the other parts of the bill. This is we are trying to do something because the governor has decided, without the consultation of the legislature, to shut businesses down, and he has not, and I listened very carefully to Senator Benson, who was asked repeatedly, what are your parameters to shut down? What are the numbers that you're looking at? What is the science and the data you are looking at? She has received a 0 answer after repeatedly asking, what are your parameters? This is a colossal mistake. Now, unfortunately, this bill will pass because this is all we have. This is it. The Senate passed it and sent it to us, and we have no option. We vote yes or no. And no matter how we vote, we are going to be scrutinized and criticized for our vote. And that is the nature of the job. I will be voting no for all the reasons that I just laid out. You decide in your own process what you want to do, who you want to help, who you don't want to help. I don't know that this literally helps businesses. I really, really wish that more than just a very small handful of people made the decision to put this bill together. You can tell that this was done by a very small group of people. Because had it been done in committee with testimony, with a great amount of input, you wouldn't have had the bill the way it is. I'm certain that a better bill could have been brought. Now, we shouldn't have had to do any bill at all because that's on the governor. The governor decided to shut it down and then look to the legislature to say, hey, you got to fix it. Well, this is all we've got. So I'll be voting no today. Thank you, members.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And would Representative Baker yield for a question?
He will yield, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Representative Baker. I just wanted to confirm I heard correctly in your comments earlier. Did I hear correctly that this bill did not go through any committees?
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Lucero. It went through the Ways and Means Committee at the end. There was a hearing on it when the bill was getting buttoned up to get it in the shape of it is today. What we did do is went through a number of side, I would say, Zoom calls with stakeholders, again, talking about things like licensing relief for the 2 a.m. caterer's license, things like that. That was led by Representative Olson. We had conversations, again, on unemployment out to the side, looking at breweries and winery relief with Representative Nash and others. So just off the tip of my tongue, Representative Lucero, that was the side and the workings of those committees assigned to those tasks. Yes.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Baker. Would Representative Mahoney yield for a question?
Representative Mahoney, will you yield?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Mahoney. Just a couple questions, actually two. So the first one is, in your remarks earlier, you had mentioned convention centers, and sometimes when you weigh, these weren't your words, these are my words now. When you wave free money around, there's often the times where people or companies, in this case, convention centers may come out of the woodwork. I do not know the definition of convention center as defined in the bill, but is there a way that the Viking Stadium, the Twin Stadium, might qualify as convention centers?
Representative Mahoney.
Madam Speaker, Representative Lucero, it's a deed grant program, so there will be parameters set around this money. It's been mentioned again, and I said I thought in my remarks, but maybe I didn't. Duluth has one. St. Cloud has a convention center. Rochester, Mankato, the Twin Cities has 2 or 3. And Representative Purcell has brought up the Bemidji. So there might be others that I am not aware of. The parameters, I don't know that the Viking Stadium would fit within those parameters. I don't know that the Twin Stadium would be considered a convention center. They typically have roofs and rooms that you can separate and put a curtain across so you can have small group meetings. So it would only be it wouldn't be a guess, but it'd be a reasonable assumption that neither of those would fall under those categories.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay, so if I understood correctly, it's still out at this point because a convention is held in large facilities, and a convention can be held. I've been to conventions actually at the Viking Stadium. I've been to cybersecurity conventions, and so I don't understand. That's why I'm seeking clarification here. What is the definition of a convention? I think that's important before we cast this vote. So when you define parameters, or when you say that it wouldn't meet the parameters, are the parameters defined in the bill, or is deed somehow supposed to come up with these parameters after we vote on the bill? If the chair would yield for another question.
I will certainly
Did you ask him to yield again?
I did, Madam Speaker.
And Representative Mahoney, will you yield?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Representative Mahoney, you have the floor.
Representative Lucero, I don't think it's a reasonable question. I think it's a made-up question to try and catch people. That's just my opinion, not assuming your motives. So to stop something from jumping up on parliamentary issues. As I said, the definition of convention centers that fit our parameters that we have spoken to DEED about and asked them to use as a guide would be St. Paul River Center, Minneapolis Convention Center, the Duluth Deck. I think in Mankato it's called the River's Edge, but I'm not sure. The Rochester Mayo Center. You're stretching to get to some point. Why don't you come to the point, Representative Lucero? You don't like the bill?
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Mahoney, that was the end of my questioning. I'm really taken aback That was the end of my questioning on that question. I'm really turned off, Representative Mahoney, at your inference, and it was a questioning of motives. I have no other point. It was simply my intent to inquire because conventions are held in facilities. And I'm not sure, I don't have the bill language on this section in front of me. That's why I was asking the bill author. And I think it's really disgusting how you had your, I know you're on your way out the door, Representative Mahoney, but just it's really disgusting how you answered it. I'm really just turned off. I honestly, genuinely, I had no gotcha. It wasn't a gotcha question. It was because I have personally attended a convention separated by curtains in these stadiums if they would qualify as a convention center per the definition of parameters. I don't know why it's so difficult for you to just be honest and answer politely instead of inferring some ulterior motive or question or point. I had none other. It was just a simple inquiry. Just a huge turnoff as you're on your way out the door. So I won't even bother asking you again to yield because my next question was, and I think you're going to give me a flippant answer, so I'm not going to even bother trying to ask you with a genuine question. Would casinos with bars in them qualify if they've suffered a loss as a bar or restaurant? Would casinos, and it's not a gotcha, it's just I'm curious to know. But I'm not going to bother answering you because I'll get some half-ass answer. And then to Representative Miller's point earlier and Representative Mahoney's answer, there isn't a computer program out there that can determine if a woman is naked in a bar, takes her clothes off. Well, I'll tell you what, all you need to do is determine with some human intelligence what type of business they are. Do they have a bar in them, and do women take their clothes off? It's not that hard to figure out. And with the answer that was given, that government doesn't have a program that can determine if there's naked women in the building. So therefore, we're going to give a check because the government can't figure it out. We're going to send them taxpayer money to bail them out. You know, I know Democrats treat people like children who are dependent upon government as their parent. But government funding naked women brings an entirely new meaning to who's your daddy. Madam Speaker, members, please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
The member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, thank you. I was just reading the newspaper here in Delano, the Delano Herald Journal. It says the headlines, downtown businesses among those affected by executive order. And in the picture, it was a beautiful picture of downtown Delano, Crow River in the foreground, businesses in the background, including mine, McDonald Studio, Dave's Town Club, local coffee shop, Brickside Restaurant, Lupine Brewery. They're all shut down. And it just occurred to me, and I'll make this short. I won't be as long as my good friend, Representative Gruenhagen, who did a good job, I think. But as I looked at the picture of our downtown that I've worked so hard in the last 32 years in my local small business and been active in my Chamber of Commerce, which of course we can't meet, and our Lions Club and our churches and our businesses and the mayor and now serve as the state rep. It's just, it is saddened, obviously, of the pandemic. For those who lost loved ones, we all recognize that, and we pray for them. We mourn for them, and we have compassion for them. But it also reminded me of the living, businesses and the families. When we say the businesses, the small businesses, the gyms and the dance studios, you know, as a photographer, I'm given the blessed gift to photograph and be with so many of these different businesses and families, from dance studios to the local restaurants and bars and coffee shops and gyms. And just the great gift to be able to do business with them and be a customer of them, and just to recognize that all that they've worked for and lived for is dying. Some are paused, and we will pray that they will be open up again. Some are done, and it is indeed very sad. And I'm I'm sure that every one of us that is listening or that cares, that all of us that cares, that serve, cares about that deeply. Don't doubt that at all. Frankly, the Democrats and the Republicans, in my 10 years of serving, I have observed that we work well together. And great issues of Minnesota in funding and helping our government, our transportation, our education, our healthcare, taking care of the elderly and the sick and those who have disabilities, and our transportation and veterans. We do good things, folks. Those who are listening, who aren't involved within the chambers, our good old taxpayers and Minnesotans, please know that we do work well together and we get things done right. Not always right, but for the most part. But this issue here has pressed us to the nth, for sure. And I believe, at least many do in my district and my businesses, that the governor's broad painting with the broad brush of shutting down all businesses in rural Minnesota, especially, where the cases are so low, as I read the papers, so low, and shutting down the businesses and the families, it is indeed devastating. And it wouldn't have to be that way. I support the bill. I do support the bill. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect until we get to the heaven. It's not perfect, but I do thank Representative Mahoney and Baker and the rest of them. I guess I'll stop there because I don't want to miss anyone. So I do support and thank you for the good work. And it's not perfect, but I know in speaking to my local dance studios who I do business with, my local restaurants and my gym that I work out with, that the little money that will help. And it is some little money. As Representative Baker said, it's on life support. And it is maybe will make the difference between opening in March or February if the governor decides to open up. Our movie theaters, our small town movie theaters, as Representative Juergens mentioned. The movie theaters is really unfair. There's not one incident in the nation that COVID-19 breakout in a movie theater. Not one incident. And yet our governor wants to shut down our movie theaters. Some of our screens have 100 to 200 seats, and he couldn't let 50 people in to view a movie. Now, albeit the Hollywood is not putting out the big blockbusters, but they do have some for the holidays. They do have some Christmas ones, and they're all playing some old ones. Empire Strikes Back was played just a couple months ago here in Delano, so that was a big one. But think of a 200-seat theater, and he wanted to let 50 people in to support our local movie theaters, even though there's not one case in the nation. So I think that's a mistake. I really do. I think that's a mistake, and it's unfortunate. When he canceled and shut down things a month ago, weddings, many of you know probably, and if you don't, I'll tell you, I'm a wedding photographer. Let me tell you, when he shut down the weddings in 3-4 days before people's weddings, that was devastating. That was unfair. And frankly, it was cruel. Very unfortunate. But in our small towns, I look at our local newspaper, Carver County, McLeod County, Meeker County, Wright County. Up until October 8th, we've had very few cases and very few deaths, thanks be to God. 9 deaths as of October 8th in Wright County, most of them in long-term care, most of them comorbidities, those who are in nursing homes. Tragic it is, but very small numbers. And yet he paints with a broad brush and shuts down every business that he thinks are spreading things in rural Minnesota. And that's the point I want to make. I think it's many folks in my district think it's quite unfair. It's not effective. It's not working. And, people are doing what the governor and our Minnesota Department of Health and our forgot what I was going to say, but we are wearing masks. We're social distancing. We're washing our hands. We're doing all that our government is asking us to do, and yet we're still shut down. So as I read the paper here in Delano and Wright County, my Annandale and Buffalo and Roxford and Waverly, Montrose and Howard Lake, businesses affected by the executive order that wouldn't have to be. It is a shame, and I certainly hope the governor tomorrow decides, or Wednesday, that it is best that the businesses and families get on with their lives and open up. I do support this bill. It'll have some support, some financial support that will help us smaller businesses and some medium-sized businesses as well. I thank Mahoney and Representative Baker and Representative New and the rest of them, Garofalo and such, Noor, Thank you for the hard work. But if we really want to be a one Minnesota, Representative Mahoney, as you mentioned in your introduction of this bill, then we need to open up all of Minnesota. And I think we can do that and still keep our loved ones safe. So, Madam Speaker, thank you.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and members for a really emotional tonight. Just wondering, sometimes I think those of us here in St. Paul deal with our local businesses, our bars and restaurants, kind of in an abstract, and we sometimes forget we're talking about real people, people whose lives are affected by what we do down here in St. Paul. I want to relate very quickly a story of a tradition back in my home county of Polk County. Over the years, there's been a long-standing tradition of providing a free Thanksgiving dinner at our local high school for folks that are alone over the holidays and such. It's really looked forward to by the folks back home. But with the shutdown and the closing of large gatherings, that traditional Thanksgiving dinner was going to be canceled. But just days after the latest shutdown and our bars and restaurants were told to close, 4 restaurants and bars in the town of Glenwood got together and said, no, we're going to make sure that Thanksgiving dinner goes on. And they got together Thanksgiving Day and worked hard getting ready for it. And they served over 900 people a free Thanksgiving meal that day. And it was a drive-through event. People drove through, picked up their meals, and they said thank you. Some left donations as well. And the money raised for that dinner was given to local charities and not kept to defray any expenses. So that just gives an idea of the good people that are working back home in our local bars and restaurants. And I agree that our businesses should be allowed to reopen, no doubt about it. But right now, unfortunately, that's really out of our control. That's up to one person sitting in the governor's office, and we can't change that as of right now anyway. This is something we can do. I agree it's not enough, but it's something that will give our local businesses a glimmer of hope that they can survive this latest shutdown. Others have mentioned also our hometown theaters. I have a couple back in my district, one on the Main Street made famous by Sinclair Lewis in Sauk Center. They have a big marquee that lights up on Saturday nights on the Main Street. Cars are all over the block, and just good to see. Also a theater in Alexandria, and they have been devastated by the shutdown since back in March. And my wife and I drove by the theater the other night. I think it was last Saturday night, and I was curious to see there were 4 cars in the parking lot at the theater. It was not lit up very well. No movies were showing, and we investigated and found that they were selling popcorn. And I realized popcorn maybe is a high profit item, but I don't think they can stay open real long by selling popcorn out of their lobby on Saturday night. So again, I want to say thanks to those that worked on the bill, putting it together as quickly as they could. Again, it's not perfect, but we need to get some aid to the folks that need it so desperately and give them the hope that this is going to end and that better times are ahead. So, Madam Speaker, thank you, and I would urge a green vote on the bill tonight.
The member from Traverse, Representative Bacher.
Yeah, Madam Speaker and members, one thing that this bill shows is the importance that since March that we've not seen that the Senate and the House members have been involved. I think that's a real, it's extremely disappointed. We have extremely talented individuals that are in both chambers, the House and the Senate. Now, I get it, this bill is not perfect, but hats off to the folks who worked on it because they thought they could do the best that they could do with limited input. I agree with several other members. This should have gone through a committee process. We didn't set that up. Obviously, that was something that's called because of the shutdown that the governor set forth. So it does show when you get all of us or more people involved than what we've had in the past, we do get better bills. We do get better information. This bill can be improved, but I do know that the folks that worked on this bill did the best that they could with the information that was presented to them. A couple of other things I want to share with people. Being a small business owner, I understand and I know how it is when you start to lose your business. Back in the 90s, we also almost lost our business, and it's a part of your life. It's a part of who you are. A lot of people know that's the case with me. I'm very active in our business because it's a small business. I'm not a big box. They have things that they can do, and that's the same thing with the restaurants. Same thing with the gyms and the theaters and other small businesses. I, just like everybody else, have heard the challenges that people face. And I believe I have a unique perspective with the only House district that borders North Dakota and South Dakota, where a lot of my constituents says there's freedom across the border. I don't say that. I have constituents who say that because we can go across the border. And the people across the border are as healthy as we are, and in some cases more healthy. I also serve as an EMT. So I've been called on runs with people with COVA, and we've taken the necessary steps and so forth. And we're still healthy and why. So I think it's quite, what I hear from my constituents is quite challenging that in greater Minnesota, especially, and even all parts of Minnesota, this has not been a regional approach. When there's a tornado in a community, like in 2010 in Waconia, which was an emergency, we did not shut down the whole state the same way. They focused on Waconia. Well, this is the same thing, and I did have the opportunity with Senator Aki back in March to share that directly with the governor and lieutenant governor that we had back in March, and I still think that's a good approach. And I'm just going to end it with this text that I received from a business owner in my district. He's done it right, both his wife and himself. He goes, let me go down here a little bit, folks. He goes, just want to let you know, I had to shut down old number one. I lose less money by shutting down than I do by opening for curbside 23 straight years of double-digit growth shot by, I'm not going to use the word that he said, shot down by our governor. And this is the impact that I don't think people who have not been a business owner, and I'm not trivializing what all people are doing their work, but when you're a business owner and you put money in the economy and you help it, and like Glenn said, a lot of business owners, including myself and these folks here, help their staff members. We've been over backwards for them. We need help from the government, not a shot in the arm. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Noor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I would like first to thank Chair Mahoney for his leadership, the House Working Group, Senator Pratt, Senator Champion, and also many thanks to staff, Commissioner Grove, Commissioner Doherty, and all those who worked hard to get the assistance to workers and businesses. Madam Speaker and members, this bill is focused on getting help into the hands of those businesses that need it the most. This is to keep our economy running. The last 8 months have been painful for small businesses and their workers who have been hit hard in those industries, who have persevered after running through loans, relief grants, and spending their savings. We've heard from many of those businesses. We're hearing them, and we're supporting them today. We're making sure that they get the support they need for the workers and the businesses. The Department of Revenue, as you've heard, will start issuing direct payments to the hard-hit businesses immediately. Quite frankly, this is resources for some of the counties who are unable to provide that immediate relief or through any other means to get into the hands of those businesses. On top of that, the Department of Employment and Economic Development will provide payment to theaters and large convention centers, as you have heard today. We've also listened to the county commissioners who have told us they know their communities very well and have learned a lot from the CARES Act resources. That's why the counties will have a major role in making sure small businesses and every businesses that were not included in the first bucket and the nonprofits who have been left out, the arts and everybody else, will get their fair share through their counties. I believe that this will be a great help to every community in the state of Minnesota. As you have seen, some of the counties will be getting even more than fair share based on per capita. We need to look into how we can support one another as one Minnesota. To be clear, this is just a bridge. There is no substitute for the size and scope that a federal aid package could deliver. Madam Speaker and members, I know we will continue to work with small businesses and workers as they persevere through this difficult time as we deal with health and economic crisis. And for thousands of workers who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own, whose benefits are about to expire by next week, the extension in this bill is a lifeline for many of them as we wait for Congress to act. This will give them hope so they can pay for their rent, for their housing, and put food at the table. However, this bill does not include those who are self-employed, who are independent contractors, who are paid through the federal program, which is going to expire by the end of this month. However, I'm truly disappointed that this bill does not include the $500 one-time payment to low-income families who are underemployed or unemployed, which this bill will have allowed for them to receive an assistance through the TANF Reserve Funds, which is meant for the same group. This will have provided much assistance to more than 31,000 Minnesotan families with over 60,000 children who receive Minnesota Family Investment Program or the Diversionary Work Program, or DWP. I'm also disappointed that the food relief program that will have provided an opportunity for the restaurants to serve 1.5 million meals to those affected by COVID-19 pandemic. It will have kept the lights on and employees will have been saved by those restaurants which will have provided meals. We know 1 in 8 Minnesotans face hunger and 1 in 5 children struggle with hunger at this time. The federal funds for this program will run out by the end of the year. Madam Speaker and members, we can do better. And yes, we should do better. We know this is not a perfect bill. It's a bridge as we wait for the Congress to act. I'm asking you to support the businesses that we've been talking about, all of us, because this is an opportunity for us to show that we can lead and what we talk about, that we are providing the assistance at this time of need. And I'm asking you to vote yes. And I'd like to thank everyone who has contributed to this bill. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And first of all, let me thank Representative Mahoney, Noor, Baker, and Haley. Leadership is never easy, but you have each stepped up to the plate and gotten the job done. Because of your leadership, there's going to be many families that are going to get some assistance as a result of this bill. In addition, there's going to be some businesses, not all, but some businesses that are going to get assistance as well. So thank you. It's important for members to remember, for any of those that are still paying attention at least, that pandemics are awful. All the options are bad. There's no easy solutions at all. During a pandemic, wealth is destroyed, hospitals fill up, and the number of people dying dramatically increases. To be short, pandemics suck. That being said, I am a bit surprised by the negativity in tonight's debate from some. Good news is on the way. Yes, first of all, we're going to pass this bill tonight, and we're going to get some assistance to people that need it. Not everyone, but some. It's a step in the right direction. But more importantly than that, today, the first COVID-19 vaccinations took place in Minnesota. This is the beginning of the end of our COVID nightmare. Now, thanks to the teamwork of those in the private and public sectors, as well as the leadership of President Trump, Operation Warp Speed has delivered a COVID vaccine that is 95% effective with little or no side effects. This is a stunning accomplishment. This is one of the greatest scientific accomplishments in medical history. It's something that all of us in this holiday season can give thanks for. Now, to those members who tonight outlined their opposition to the work that Representative Mahoney, Noor, Baker, and Haley prescribed, I would just ask one question. What is your plan? What is your plan in opposition to this bill? Because it's pretty clear that the constant strategy of beating Tim Walz and the DFL over the head with a political pipe ain't working. We've done it for 9 months. We've had an election, and it's clear that Governor Walz is not going to give up his power and that our friends in the DFL caucus aren't going to do it. So given that 9-month track record of failure, why on earth would we double down with the dithering and delays of avoiding any additional solutions for our businesses? Yes, the lockdowns are bad. Yes, Governor Walz's powers should be taken, emergency powers should be taken away. But no, we should not ignore today's bill and vote no on it as some sign of protest. Members, no more dithering, no more delays. Vote yes, let's get this assistance to families and businesses, and let's get Minnesota moving again. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had a 28-page closing statement that included a second retirement speech because I felt I kind of deserved it after the last month. But I'm going to toss that aside because I don't think it's needed right now. I neglected to thank my staff earlier. Anna Schlien, House Research. Marta James, House Research. Sove Bethel, fiscal staff, were side by side with us, listening and correcting the way we were wording things, pointed out places that we could have looked harder at or should have looked harder at or shouldn't have looked at. They were invaluable. And they are all nonpartisan. And I know the Republican members of the working group took advantage of them just as the same as the Democrats took advantage and used their advice. So my hat is off to those three members of the House nonpartisan staff. This bill could not have happened without them. I'm going to answer a few questions and then have a very brief closing. Representative Drazkowski asked, how could we steal money or force the Department of Revenue to collect taxes prior to getting money? That was the Senate position. I'm kind of amazed that do people think that the 8 of us on this committee have not talked to people in our district, answered emails from all corners of the state, have not heard the stories with people in tears telling us that their business has vanished? We listened to all of that. And this is the best bill we could come up with. Would we have liked it to gone through the committee process? Yes, but generally that takes 5 months. And that wouldn't have helped these businesses. Would we have liked to have a bill like this ready for the governor to announce the same day he announced the rollback? Of course we would have. That's unquestionable.
But in a pandemic, you don't get months to clear legislation through a body like ours. I wish we could. I wish a pandemic moved that slow. But there are 4,000 dead Minnesotans. Can you imagine what we would be doing if 4,000 people, 4,000 construction workers died on the job site in less than 9 months? Can you imagine what we would do to cars if 4,000 people died in automobile accidents in 9 months? I could go on with those kind of examples. We would have a crisis on our hands just like we have right now. I've heard a lot of anecdotal research tonight, and I can't work on anecdotal. I can only work with the present and the data that is shown to me. There was a question about Department of Revenue's ability to decipher who and what gets money. They have a program. The simplest and fastest way to get money out is comparisons of sales and sales tax data. Otherwise, they would have to go through almost all of it by hand to pick and choose the winners and the losers. That, again, would take months. We don't have months to save as many small business as we possibly can. I would love to trust us. I don't have that luxury. I don't think we have the luxury to trust us to get something done and respond to pandemic issues immediately. I ran for this office to have the voices of 45,000 people on the east side of St. Paul heard, and they don't get that. And I understand the frustration and the anger. But I will assure you that Governor Walz has the care and the good care of the citizens of the state of Minnesota. And I hope we don't question his integrity. I hope we don't question his intent. I think everyone on this House floor has known or seen the devastation that this disease can do to people. And many, many people know and miss the people who have died. Members, would I like this bill to be larger? Would I have liked a better unemployment package? I think we all would have that worked on this working group. Do we only want to save 4, 5, 6, 8, 10,000 businesses? No, we want to save each and every one of them. But the mantra, there was 2 mantras on this bill. Speed is better than perfect, and good is better than, don't let perfect get in the way of good. Members, this is a good bill. A bill done in a very short timeline. And it helps thousands and thousands of people and thousands of businesses. I hope we light this board up with green, all green. I know that's not going to happen, but I feel no shame at all in this bill. I feel great pride. I'm leaving this august body, one of the best places in the world to work. One of the buildings that makes your heart flutter at times, especially after the remodel. And it has been a privilege and an honor. And this bill is a privilege and an honor for me to carry. Again, a green vote is requested on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members.
The member from Chisago, Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This has been the most difficult year ever for so many businesses back in our districts. The shutdowns, the reopenings, the delayed announcements, the downright harassment and overzealous enforcement from agencies, the fines, the loss of revenue, spending tens of thousands of dollars on new safety equipment just to be shut down again, setting up curbside, purchasing PPE, all of these things have taken a toll on our businesses. And today's bill is just a small step that we can take to help them out from the harm that government has caused them this year. Frankly, it's the least that we can do for our businesses. And we get it. COVID is the reason for the shutdowns, but the way that the governor has handled these restrictions and how he has treated our businesses made the devastation infinitely worse. From the ridiculously short notice given to our bars and restaurants, to the complete lack of evidence to support shutting down establishments like gyms and theaters. We've seen it in just the past few days. We were supposed to get an announcement from the governor on Friday about whether or not he would continue this shutdown next week. Well, he didn't do it Friday, then he decided he'd do it today. Nope, couldn't do it today, now he's waiting until Wednesday. On Wednesday, we will find out if businesses are supposed to stay closed, open up 2 days later. 48 hours, that's what he's going to give them. 48 hours. Does the governor have any idea what it does to these businesses? Think about what has to happen in that time. In 48 hours, they have to call employees back. They have to set up schedules. They have to order in inventory. Who knows? They might have to purchase and install new safety equipment. We don't know what the governor's going to do and what he's going to mandate for these businesses. All of these things take time. Our businesses need as much time as possible. We've been begging for time. Employees need time to arrange their schedules. But here we are. We'll get notice on Wednesday. We'll have 48 hours. And in all this, the legislature has absolutely no role. None. We have no say in what's happening. He isn't listening to us. He isn't talking to us. He isn't working with us. He isn't giving us insight into what he thinks is coming on Wednesday. Do any of you know? Do any of you have any insight on what is coming? Please enlighten us. I would be happy to ask someone to yield if you can give us any idea of what is happening. Because our constituents are desperate for information. They are desperate to know what they are supposed to be planning for Friday. You know, there's no reason this bill had to take this long. But that's what happens when you have a governor who doesn't feel like he has to deal with the legislature. The governor knew more than a month ago that new restrictions were coming. He didn't tell any of us, of course, not until the day before, but he knew. His administration could have been reaching out to the legislators to get a relief package ready to go. He knew. He could have been working on that. He could have been prepared to help our businesses. Instead, 3 weeks ago today, the governor told the press that he was ready to call us back very next day to take up a business relief package. He told the press that he was ready to go. We didn't know anything about it. We found out about his plan, which wasn't really a plan. There was no language, we didn't have details. But that plan had been hatched in secret with the majority leader. There was no outreach to our caucus. There was no outreach to the majority or even the minority in the Senate. There was certainly no outreach to the very businesses that he shut down. This is how we're doing things now. And so we waited, and our businesses waited 3 full weeks from the day the governor said he was ready to go. He was ready to go. So I want to make sure that we give credit where it's due. Representative Baker, Representative Mahoney, you guys have done incredible work to get this pulled together. But if the governor had stepped up, if he put everyone in a virtual room, if he wanted to move this quickly, we could have done this. We could have agreed to this a week ago or more. Frankly, we could have agreed to it weeks ago had the governor been proactive and reached out to the legislature and gotten this ball rolling when he knew he was shutting things down. Thank you to Representative Baker. Because of him, our caucus was the caucus that had our foot on the gas pedal. Representative Baker led the way on this business relief package. We came out with a plan immediately. Frankly, I'm pretty sure he has not slept in 3 weeks as he's pushed this forward. Along with Representative Haley, Representative Garofalo, Nash, and I know there were others who've worked on different pieces of this. You know, we're heading into a session now where we have some major challenges to deal with. We do still have a huge budget deficit heading into the next biennium, and we have to pass a $50 billion budget. I'm not sure how we do that if we don't start working together. The governor is going to have to work with us whether he likes it or not. We have to work together. This bill is not perfect, but it's what our businesses desperately need right now. You know, we know that it's not going to prevent every business from going under, and that's really the devastating part. It's not enough. What they need is to open their doors. Again, I want to thank Representative Baker and Representative Mahoney. A lot of people played a part in getting this bill to the finish line. Our staff, Chelsea Olson, Commissioner Grove, Commissioner Doty, Senator Pratt, Senator Champion, Representative Haley. A lot of people were involved in getting this done. A strong bipartisan team of people worked really hard in getting this done. And let's remember that as we head into this next session in January. We did really good bipartisan work here. And I would implore you, Governor, let's work together. Let's make sure we have 3 fully functioning branches of government. Let's work together so that we can work for Minnesotans. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members, for most of this debate tonight. First and foremost, I want to recognize the outstanding work of Representative Tim Mahoney, not only on this bill, the December of his legislative career, but also throughout the pandemic. This is not the first small business assistance package that we have passed. This is not the first effort on behalf of Minnesotans who need support from state government to manage through this pandemic. This is the culmination of a year's worth of work on behalf of Minnesotans who need us to act and to function and to work together. Frankly, Representative Mahoney deserves some sort of gold medal for his Senate negotiating partner going back as far as the 2019 budget session. It is not easy to work across party lines. It is not easy to work across chambers. It is not easy to pull a bill together after months of very rancorous and sometimes ugly debate about a disease that is killing Minnesotans. This has been a very, very difficult year, and sometimes the ability to simply persevere long enough to create a good result is the highest form of leadership and service and sacrifice, and Representative Mahoney has displayed that for us many times this year. I am a little bit concerned about the way this debate has been framed. Many Minnesotans have made sacrifices this year to make sure that COVID-19 doesn't unnecessarily claim lives or damage the health of our fellow citizens. First responders, doctors, nurses, hospital administrators have been on the front lines. Restaurant owners, most of whom have understood the need to face these restrictions, have found ways to continue their operations. They have found ways to serve the public. They have found ways to stay in business, and many of them have found ways to keep people on the payroll long after it probably made economic sense for them to stop. Bar owners have done the same thing. People in business in Minnesota are often the pillars of our communities, especially in our small towns and with our local businesses. They understand the importance of serving, and they understand the importance of sacrificing. We have asked them to sacrifice more than just about any other business in the state, and what this bill represents is an understanding that their sacrifice has saved lives. Their sacrifice has saved health of Minnesotans. They have been on the front lines by making their businesses continue to operate as best they can under very difficult circumstances. The $200 million in this bill is a payment for workers on the front line, just as we have provided payment for workers who've been serving us in grocery stores, workers who've been serving us in healthcare settings and long-term care across the state. We, the legislature, too, have made significant sacrifices, not like these, the ones I've just described, but we have found a way to make this legislature function despite a pandemic. The tireless work of our front desk staff, Mike Spiker, House Research, the reviser, so many parts of our institution have made sacrifices to continue working from home, to find ways to create remote hearing spaces for us, to risk their own health to be here to serve the public through 7 special sessions after a regular legislative session that required us to do more work than we could possibly have imagined to remake this institution to continue to function and maximize public input as best we possibly can. I had a conversation just a couple of days ago with a legislator from Illinois who said that they have not been in session since May and they don't plan to go in until the pandemic is over, and they will try to pass a budget in 60 days. Other states are operating basically as usual despite significant public health risks. They haven't found a way to continue to do the public's business while maintaining a high standard of safety for the members and staff who work here. We have done that. Many, many, many Minnesotans have stepped up to do the right thing, make sacrifices, and help us all get through this pandemic. The business relief provisions in this bill are about making sure that those who have done the most receive the most support. This isn't like the PPP program that paid out millions and millions of dollars to people who don't need it and who are doing just fine. This is small business relief targeted at the smallest companies who need the most help, who've done the most to help keep us all safe. We are fortunate that that also includes, or that this bill includes, a significant and historic expansion of unemployment insurance to the Minnesotans who have lost their jobs because of the pandemic. Now, I know that you want to say that every bad thing that ever happened in this pandemic is the fault of one person. Even though 48 states are operating under these kinds of circumstances with emergency orders and emergency powers, and as Representative Garofalo said, even though the solutions are not easy, they're not obvious, and they're not going to be presented through political rhetoric in a legislative chamber, it actually takes hard work to do this. So the unemployment insurance provisions are for the people who would be losing their benefits on December 26th. It's December 14th. It's the season of Advent, of expectation. It's a season when we want to bring people together, when we want to see the best in each other, when we want to see our fellow human beings as part of a larger whole. And there is much in 2020 that might make us question whether we are, in fact, all in it together and whether we believe in that. I think during this season of the year, we have an opportunity to show that, in fact, after all the dangerous rhetoric, the dangerous actions, frivolous lawsuits, election contests, bombastic rhetoric in the campaign, all of the nonsense that has represented political activity in our system in 2020, at the end of the day, Minnesotans have a state government that can find a way to bridge differences, to help the people who are most in need, and help them get through to a time when a brighter light of a vaccine can help us all survive, and when the federal government might be able to use its tremendous powers to help us all survive. So members, let us show tonight, during this season, that the best of us can still overcome the worst of us. That every time we face a challenge, every time we face hardship, every time we face a crisis, every time we face a disaster, what's good in us is able to rise to the top, that we are able to do as best we can for the people most in need, and that what Minnesotans can expect from their state government when times are toughest are people who can come together and actually do the right thing for them, the people's government. That is our mission. Our mission tonight, members, is to vote green. I ask you to do that. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Bahr.
Bahr, no.
Bahr, no. Baker. Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker, Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow. Brand.
Brand votes yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Doubt.
Doubt, aye.
Doubt, aye. Davids.
David's, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Daphne, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean.
Dean, aye.
Dean, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Edelson, aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg, aye.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Russell, no.
Grossel, no. Grunhagen.
Representative Mahoney, we'll miss you. I'll miss you. But I'm a no.
Gruenhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley. Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Houseman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman.
Heinzman, aye.
Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Ornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine.
Kunis Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Lee, aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh. Excused. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lane, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long. Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney. Mahoney. Mann. Excused. Mariani.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklen.
Mecklen, no.
Mecklen, no. Miller. Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash. Nash. Nelson M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll, aye.
O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
Neal, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Rochelle, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Guam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Sauk, aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. Stevenson. Stevenson. Sundin.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice. Tice. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Walgamot.
Walgamot, aye.
Walgamot, aye. Zhang Jie.
Zhang Jie, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti. Zhang Ti. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman. Aye. Speaker Hortman, aye. Bo.
Oh, aye.
Bo, aye. Halverson.
Halverson, aye.
Halverson, aye. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Runbeck. Runbeck. Tice. Tice, aye. Zhang Ti. Zhang Ti.
There being 117 ayes and 13 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.